Okay, it is 10 o'clock and it's time on our schedule for a road vacation hearing for Brush Creek Road. First of all, I'd like to know if there's anybody, do we have everybody in attendance here that needs to be here? Is there anyone that has any hearing impairments or needs any special help or assistance during this hearing? If so, speak now. Seeing Scott, do you have an issue?
No impairment, but I just wanted to note David Weinkoop, the counsel for this, he's not on apparently this, so we should call him.
Well, he just sent me an email and I sent him the virtual instructions on how to do this. And it was if you want to call him, you can call him.
I think we should call him because I just spoke with him.
I don't do how.
You want to just have your phone up here, Scott?
That'd be great.
I have phone numbers here.
Okay, so while we're getting this set up, we'll kind of go over the ground rules. We're going to have the applicant, which is Iris Tomorrow or her representative, open up, make their case. Any opposition, we will then allow to make their case. And then the commissioners will close comments after, we'll actually take any open comments after that, and then we'll close comments and go from there. Yes.
Here's a raised hand, so I didn't know how to talk about the.
By the way, if anybody is jumping in, whether it's in the audience here or online, please make sure you state your name for the record. Let's see who this is and what they.
Okay, so I don't know who it is, so we'll find out.
Right. Sure.
Yes, this is Dave Weinkoop.
Oh, hey, Dave. We got Dave Weinkoop. All righty. Thanks, Dave, for joining us. So you can hear and see everything?
I can hear everything. We weren't able to get the video to work, so I'm just doing it by telephone. Thank you.
That's okay. We're not that much to look at anyway, so. Okay, fantastic. Well, then with that, why don't we go ahead and Iris, are you going to do a presentation or your attorney? Yes, go ahead, Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a suggestion on format. If we could have our road and bridge director do the initial presentation, then the applicant do their presentation, and then public comment, I would suggest.
No, I oppose that. No, I'm just kidding. That's fine. Steve Platt, would you like to come up and open this up then?
I will be glad to. Steve Platt, Road and Bridge Director for the record. I prepared, and I believe the commissioners received a simple staff report. And it really talked about the history of Brush Road being created via viewer's report in 1903 and was opened as a public highway. At that time, there was no Bonner County, so it was opened as a public highway by the Kootenai County Commissioners. And that was prior to the formation of Bonner County. Brush Road was the connecting segment between the roads we now know as East Spring Creek and Shadow Valley Lane, and terminated along the section line of 22, and then terminating at sections 22 and 23 where Cherry Lane comes across and joins Shadow Valley Lane. And it then terminated up where the trailhead is now at in section 22, connecting to West Spring Creek Road. It was in public use until a bridge washed out in 1964. The bridge was never replaced, and no further road maintenance was done on that road since then. The commissioners received an amended petition to abandon and vacate the county road, submitted by Stephen Smith, who is attorney at law for Iris Tomorrow and Neatman family, and that was on November 1st, 2019. The petition was reviewed per the operative statute, Idaho Code Section 40-203, and found to be complete. The petition was accepted by the county commissioners. Staff scheduled this public hearing. Notices were mailed to Iris Tomorrow, the Neatmans, Moorheads, and the U.S. Forest Service as adjoining property owners. And public notices were published on the Bonner County Daily Bee on April 2nd, 9th, and 16th. Frontier was notified as the one potentially affected utility. I had conversations with Frontier, and they were satisfied there was no negative impacts to that utility. Part of Idaho Code pertinent to this, Section 40 203 is consideration of the public interest by the commissioners. And some public interest that I could identify and noted for the commissioners that a fee may be charged for the market value of the land contained in the petition considered for vacation. The land will be converted to the tax rolls to the benefit of Bonner County tax revenues. This vacation would eliminate any future costs and claims for road improvements that might ever occur in brush road right of way. And it is a potential to secure an easement for emergency access from the end of Shadow Valley Lane to the West Spring Creek Road at the trailhead. The commissioner's one consideration is granting this petition to vacate in the public interest. And then another consideration for the commissioners is, should there be a fee associated with the land, should it be chosen to be vacated?
Okay.
That is my staff report.
Great. Do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Klatt?
I guess the one question I would have for either Scott or Steve, and if they have this knowledge is, are we covering our costs on this? Because I know that it seems like we look like we have a bit of costs involved here.
Yes, there is an application fee that we put in for all road vacations.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Is that a forestry service trailhead?
Yes, it is.
So it's been a public access.
From the back, other side.
Yes.
Yeah, there's something around.
The trailhead.
Actually, I think, we wish we had the map up. I think that the applicant's property goes all the way up. Doesn't it go all the way up to where that road, where that loop is, on the other end?
Yes.
Okay.
Not direct.
Not directly, but okay, yeah, because I was brushing up on the map myself this morning. So Iris or Steve, if you'd like
I
to.
can pull it up, if you want me to pull it up on Bonner County maps. or-
Yeah, that'd be great. Just so the commissioners have a good idea of the layout. Can you turn the camera around to face the screens when that map comes up?
They should be able to see on these ones.
They can
Yeah.
see it,
Oh, there we go.
maybe.
Or we
Well,
can go get
They
it.
can see the TV. I don't know if they'll be able to see that.
Daniel can probably go snag it.
See, we set this position first.
Well, that's weird. They can see it, but we can't see.
Right.
I just need to,
Turn that one on.
Yeah. I'm not great at this, so I don't know where to go here, so.
You are right there, Jesse.
We've got someone raise their hand, but we're gonna wait and have a time for public comment.
You might minimize.
So if you can
one
just hang tight and try to remember what your question is or your comment is, and we'll open up for that after we get through the presentations.
And it might take, Jesse, it might take one more bump down.
You wanna-
No, you're right.
Yeah, you're right at the bottom of you're right at where the
Yeah,
turn
I
is.
think I need to fix this.
You can also send Daniel the link and he can throw it up for everybody.
Well, that's just Bonner County maps.
Okay.
Not me.
Yeah.
And then I just type in Shadow Valley. Sure.
Want to cuss at it or anything, Jesse, to make
I
sure?
might hit it a little bit.
BonnerCountyMaps.com.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Well,
that
I
is,
just-
that is now showing when that comes out. It is now showing.
Get that in our website.
She's gonna put it on the actual viewer so that the folks that are tuning in can actually see it. So
And
we'll hopefully see it more clearly.
the departments and the GIS.
I will, just a second. This puppy?
And then. the
Okay.
Yeah, I have interactive.
Yeah. One moment.
They agree.
Read it first.
You're live.
Okay. Okay, so zoom in, actually up on the search, type in Shadow Valley Lane. It'll help you get there quicker.
Okay, Shadow search.
Or to the left.
Shadow Valley Lane?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just like that?
Yeah. Okay, now back out of it a bit. Get rid of that. Go ahead and X that out, yeah. And then slide north. Okay, there you go. Oop, now go back south just a little bit and then center it up. Move to the right of the screen.
Yeah.
Other way, the other right. Okay, so right here you can see Shadow Valley Lane. Right down at the bottom of the screen where it kind of loops up. You can see the turnaround up in the very top of West Spring Creek. And then those two parcels, the parcel to the right, that go, bring your arrow down over here to the left. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, right there. That's one portion of Iris's property, and then the portion above it, I believe, is yours as well, right, Iris?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can see that there's it connects basically up to with the corner of her property touching touching her near that loop if the lines are close to correct, which we know they aren't perfectly correct, but they're fairly close. So that gives you a visual of what we're looking at as far as the area goes. Any questions by the commissioners on any of this?
Nope.
Seeing none, okay. Then Iris?
Would it be acceptable for her to stand at the podium? Like,
Sure.
Answer some questions.
Yeah, I think that's great. That would be more than appropriate.
Okay, stop.
Stating your name for the record, you are Iris Tomorrow,
Iris DeMoro.
and you're the petitioner in this road vacation proceeding.
I am the petitioner for the vacation of Brush Road.
Thank you, Iris.
I'd like to just take you down through the elements of the petition for the benefit of the commissioners, if I may. As was indicated by the road director, the original name of the road was Brush Road, and it was done by a viewer's report in 1903. And it's called Spring Creek Road on the east and west ends today. And the portion of the Brush Road that you're seeking to abandon and vacate is north of the East Spring Creek Road,
Yes.
and it's at the junction with Stony Brook.
Cherry Lane.
And you're seeking the vacation and abandonment of all current and past locations of Brush Road on your property.
Yes.
And you're also seeking abandonment and vacation of all public rights of way located on your real property.
Yes.
And have you attached to the petition the best known legal description of the portion of Brush Road that will be vacated? And is the map that's attached as addendum 2 a good and accurate depiction of the portion of Brush Road to be
Yes.
vacated? Is your property adjacent to the portion of Brush Road then shown on addendum 3 to the petition, the legal description?
Yes.
And the other owners of frontage on this road would be William B. Neatman
Yes.
as to 50% interest, and then also the James P. Neatman and Ann M. Doherty Trust as to 50% interest, and they've joined you as petitioners. When you purchased your property, was this road shown in your title insurance search? And have you been paying taxes on your property to date with no exclusion for county road right of way?
Yes.
Has Bonner County not maintained this road for more than 50 years based upon your investigation?
Yes.
And in the petition, it alleges that the portion of Brush Road to be vacated has not been a major public thoroughfare since the 1930s, when Highway 10A, which is now Highway 200, was created to replace the road because of constant local floods.
Yes.
And is Brush Road currently being used as a public right-of-way?
No,
And is it currently developed as a road?
no,
And why is that?
because it's in the creek.
And is there a name to that creek?
It's in Spring Creek.
And after the bridge washed out in 1964 and was not replaced, has there been any public use of the road other than intermittent motorcycles and people walking, to your knowledge?
No, it's just been people who are willing to drive through the creek, ATVs.
Okay. And in 1978 was that property purchased by John Dibble. And did he then build a house?
Yes,
And are there affidavits attached to your petition from John Dibble? And also another affidavit that described the background and why that road was not being used? Are there any known owners or operators of any underground facilities that are located within the portion of Brush Road to be vacated? Other than you and the Neatmans as petitioners, are there any other owners of record of land that abut Brush Road that would need to be involved in this? Is there any current or expected future need of a public right-of-way to be located on the portion of Brush Road that you're asking to be vacated? And is Spring Creek a Class 1 stream containing fish?
I believe so.
And to your knowledge, would the Corps of Engineers allow for a road to be built in that?
I seriously doubt it.
You believe that the vacation of the portion of Brush Road that you're seeking would be in the public interest of Bonner County?
Yes,
And does the portion of Brush Road to be vacated have a market value of $2,000 or more, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Would the abandonment and vacating of the Brush Road that you're seeking to have vacated leave any real property adjoining a public right-of-way without access to an established highway or public right-of-way? Are there any existing sewer, gas, water, or similar pipelines or underground facilities that would be in the Brush Road portion? And therefore, there would be no need to have any right-of-way reserved for a public utility.
Absolutely.
And is it your belief that the portion of Brush Road to be vacated is not a highway, public street, or public right-of-way that was accepted as a part of a recorded platted subdivision?
I don't think so.
And the portion of Brush Road to be vacated does not lie on land owned by the United States or the state of Idaho, to your knowledge?
Yeah.
Your knowledge, the portion of Brush Road to be vacated has not been used by the public and has not been maintained at the expense of the public for at least 3 years during the previous 15 years.
Yes.
And you were alleging in your petition that there was the case of Lean versus Bonner County. And because of the outcome of that case, the brush road is not necessary to anything that was agreed to or part of the judgment in that case. And based upon what happened in that case, did Bonner County vacate Spring Creek or Brush Road for the plaintiffs in the Dean case from the beginning of Shadow Valley Lane to the house owned by Mr. and Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Has the United States Forest Service designated the land abutting the north portion of Brush Road as a grizzly bear and caribou habitat?
Yes.
And what decision did the Forest Service reach about the road area there based on that designation?
They decided to end it at the turnabout at the 120 trailhead.
If Brush Road were not vacated and abandoned, would it be necessary for you to commence a quiet title action in court in order to remove this public right of way from the property?
I believe so.
And have I advised you that if that were the case, that we would need to add the county as a party to that lawsuit?
Yes.
And is a part of the reason that you're seeking this vacation and abandonment the ability to request this by the county so that the county would not be drawn into a lawsuit and have to expend money on the lawsuit?
Yes.
And would you state that from your opinion that would be in the public interest?
It is in the
of our
public
county?
interest. We do not want to go to court.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Steve, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I have something.
Okay.
The question that comes up to me would be probably for Scott, I guess, or Steve, either one. But it's talking about, first it talks about the portion of Brush Road which petitioners seek to abandon, which is what we're here for. But then it also says, including all current and past locations of Brush Road on the petitioner's real property, together with any and all public rights of way located on the petitioner's real property. I'm not sure that you can just strike, I mean, we're here for a hearing that's defined, right? To a parcel that is legally described in your petition. I don't know that we can strike anything else that possibly could be out there, can we?
Scott, help me out here, but didn't we, as part of that, the case with the Walkers or the Deans, that portion north of the Deans' residence was not ours to begin with? Through the curve?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yes. That's
So it was already vacated as part of that agreement, if I recall, right?
I don't know that it was vacated.
It just never
It
existed.
just never existed.
Right.
And I think David Weinkoop would be better able to speak, Mr. Conley, on this, but I want to add one point. One of the purposes of the vacation hearings is to remove any doubts about right-of-ways. So, and I'll defer to Mr. Klatt, but I don't believe we honor maintains that there are any other public right-of-ways.
Right. No, it ends right at that.
Corners.
And I don't think that, I'm not saying that there is, and I'm not even insinuating that there might be, but what I'm saying is we're here to, is a very specific thing. There's a legal description of a very specific thing. And to me, that's what we're here for, nothing else.
And I would maintain, and I'll defer to David Weinkoop on this, if he may disagree with me, but I'll maintain that in that petition, there's language requesting within the four corners of Ms. Morrow's property that all rights of way, public rights of way within those four corners be vacated. And I'm guessing that the reason she's doing that is because, for example, if she builds or does any improvements on that property, and then it later turns out that, hey, there's an argument there was public right of way, then obviously that could cause a real problem. So Mr. Weinkoop, could you weigh in on that?
David, do you hear that?
Uh-oh.
He's got his hand. Yeah, you gotta go. There we go. Okay, now David. Thank you.
Yes, this is Dave. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So it's pretty common in a vacation for an older road to have kind of meandered around through the years. And so I believe this is, we could ask Mr. Smith, but I believe his intention on behalf of his client is to do more of a make sure that anything that is located on the DeMuro property is vacated in case somebody then later argues, well, the road meandered into different locations through the years and that portion was not vacated. And so it is appropriate, in my opinion, for there to be a vacation of, as part of this, of any and all past rights of way that might have been located on a parcel of land.
So this captures anything that might even be considered prescriptive or anything for the history. Okay. I'm following.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it might have been acquired, in this case it was acquired by viewer's report, but again, the practical reality was the road might have, as the creek flooded or whatever, might have been relocated through the years. And so the argument might be going forward that some kind of a prescriptive right-of-way had been created, say, prior to 1965 on a different location. And I believe as part of the petition, the petitioner is requesting, just out of clarity's sake, that the decision of the commissioners include vacation of any possible rights of way that might have been created. Now, likely prior to 65, any right of way that would have been outside the viewer's report area acquired by prescription would have been passively abandoned anyway. So in my opinion, this is really more just a title cleanup sort of a procedure.
Okay, you've got the petition in front of you because it says Brush Road, and then it also, together with any and all public rights of way located on the petitioner. So what that does is, to me, that broadens us out from what we're here to do. The scope of this is for Brush Road. And I don't have a problem with if Brush Road meanders, and we can say that. But if there's something else out there, don't we have to have another hearing to talk about its relevance?
Well, I think Wynkoop made the point that this is, first of all, this is all within the confines of the property, right? The Iris property doesn't extend outside of her property, so it doesn't touch anything outside of her property. This is just the original easement from the viewer's report, and then any other what could be potentially considered prescriptive because of the road being moved for the creek and what have you. And I see what he's saying. It's just cleaning up anything that's within the boundaries of Iris's property.
And if I may add, for the record, if I may add that and I do agree with Mr. Conley that the scope of this hearing is whatever has been the prayer for relief, whatever has been alleged in the petition. Now, it's my assumption, Dave, does a petition seek vacation of any and all rights of way within the four corners of Ms. DeMaro's property?
Yes.
As I've reviewed the petition, in my opinion, it seeks to vacate any rights of way located within the geographical area of the DeMuro property, and I think they broadened that out to the other two parties as well. But they're not trying to vacate any portions of a right of way outside of the legal property described in the petition.
Right.
And that's not what I'm saying at all. Okay.
But I think if you focus on the name Brush Road came into existence by a viewer report, formal road creation process back in the early 1900s. Now, what could have happened is, as Mr. Wynkoop stated, is that public use could have varied from that viewed out alignment of Brush Road, and it could have created other rights of way. And those other rights of way might not properly be denominated brush road. So if what you do is you just vacate the road that's denominated brush road, then, and other rights of way were created through the changing alignments of brush road or through just other use, parties using other areas of the property to connect into brush road. To me, you're providing certainty. I think what they're seeking, and I'm just trying to interpret the petition, what they're seeking is they're seeking closure as to the issue whether any of the travel ways that could have been created theoretically
As part of Brush Road.
whether or not they would be technically brush road.
Right.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, whether they meet the original legal description of the easement or anything that would have been varied from that original legal description that might be considered prescriptive.
Well, they can get there by striking all public rights of way. All they have to do is discuss, and Steve's smiling, he knows what I'm getting towards is that I don't have a problem with anything described and or contained in the brush road. But as far as all, because in my opinion, we can't legally say, we need to have a hearing if there's something else popped up on her property, half a mile from here. We would have to have a hearing to also vacate that.
Right, well, let me
We
just,
can't
well, maybe we can clean this up by just asking, Alan, you've surveyed this property, and you've done all the research. Are there any other easements, road easements on that property?
Alan Kabir, I have not found any.
Okay.
There's no other ones other than Brush Road. The original 1903 right-of-way was the only one that I found.
So there's no potential for any other easements outside of this Brush Road, defined by the actual description and any other potential prescriptive that would be affected by this.
So just knock that verbiage out together with any,
So,
I know, public right of way.
could that be amended to say
Any prescriptive.
any and all possible past right-of-ways that may have varied geographically for whatever reason within the boundaries of her property be vacated? I mean,
We could clean that, I think the language.
kind of like to clean the language up a little bit.
I think
Because I can see where geographically the creek's high one year, so we had to pick a path around. And so the road might vary, and you see roads like that all over North Idaho. And so what was pinned by a surveyor originally as the road over the last 117 years could vary a whole lot because of geographical changes.
Scott Bauer for the record, in response to all this dialogue, what I suggest is that when you get to the point of deliberation, if you get to the point of making a public interest vacation decision, you can limit the scope at that time. So what you can simply say is that I approve the vacation of any and all rights of way that pertain in any way to Brush Road,
Exactly.
but no others. Or you can say any and all rights of way relating to Brush Road and all others, and that'll come into the deliberation phase.
Okay.
I'm just not sure we can. I'm just not sure we can just say anything that falls within this, let's just call it 160 acres, whatever it is, we're just going to vacate it all because this hearing is specific to a vacation of a certain described brush road, and it's described in here.
And at the deliberation phase,
We'll take care of it in deliberation. In the essence of time, we can take care of this in deliberation. Okay. Any other questions for Iris? I'll go ahead and
I
take
have a
it.
statement.
Then you need to wait if you have a statement. Are you for or against?
Richard Harder with the Clarkport Fire Department.
Okay. Then I'll give you time in just a second here. I want to make sure we get done with Iris first, and then
Thanks, sir.
I'll have you come up. Anything else, guys? None? Iris, thank you. You may be seated.
I thought I was making a presentation.
Oh, do you want to do a presentation?
Absolutely.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Okay, because I thought this was fairly solid, but go ahead.
Ready to go?
Okay. This is the request for the vacation of Brush Road, a fact-checked, evidence-based comprehensive analysis by Iris DeMoro. I'm an architect with Alan Kabir, who's a surveyor and a geologist. Over the years, depending on the amount of spring flooding and the consequent condition of roads, various roads and skid trails have been used for travel. Some roads have been in continuous use, whereas others have been abandoned. The section line is in red. In reality, you can see that Spring Creek Road, Brush Road was built to the west of the section line. Obviously, no one alive today would know the entire history of the creek, as you would have to be 117 years old. This is the 1903 viewers report. Brush Road has never been recorded, so we have had to revert to the original dedication document. This is a copy of the August 22nd, 1903 viewers report that created Brush Road before any of us were born. Surveyor, geologist, and history buff Alan Kabir dug this document out of the Kootenai County records. The viewer's report is the only legal document that substantiates the existence of Brush Road. We have had to go back more than 100 years to find its exact location because the precise location was unknown due to the constant flooding and washouts. This 1903 document dedicates Brush Road directly on the section line. However, in 1904, when it was actually constructed, it was built to the west of the section line. We know this by aerials taken in the early 20th century. As far as Alan Kabir, the most knowledgeable surveyor in this part of Bonner County, has been able to discern, the pink area is the original Brush Road. So this is Shadow Valley Lane, and this is the original Brush Road. The blue is Spring Creek, and you can see that the original 1903 right-of-way is completely in the creek. My road is in, my privately constructed road is the brown, and it ends in a turnabout at the end, and it is completely on the east side of the creek with no egress to any other part out of there, because I don't have a bridge up there. The left, this is a 1903 viewers report, and we're talking about this little circle area, which is on this map. The pink area is the right-of-way, and you can see that it's 100% in the creek, and the brown ends in a turnabout, completely on the east side of the creek. 1998 Google Earth view of Shadow Valley Lane. This is, I highlighted it in yellow here. You can see that Shadow Valley Lane has been in continuous use for more than a century. John Dibble's affidavit states that he purchased the property in 1978, thereby stopping any public access across his property. I purchased the property from John in 2002. This means Brush Road on this tract of land has not been used by the public since 1978. That is 41 years. Because the portion of Brush Road on my property has not been used by the public since 1978, when John Dibble purchased the property and built his home, top road consultants in Idaho who have been consulted consider this portion of Brush Road an abandoned road, a passively abandoned road. Its use actually ended even earlier in '64 when a bridge at the northern end washed out. This means it has not been used as a public right-of-way for more than half a century, except by those willing to drive into the creek. Apparently, there was a bridge on the north portion of Brush Road as it crossed the creek. Fritz Holtz's affidavit states the bridge washed out in '64. Roland Durr's affidavit also states the bridge washed out in '64. Kermit Kabir's affidavit additionally states the bridge washed out in '64. Today, Brush Road heads straight into Spring Creek, right here. This is the section line. In 2016, this berm was reinforced to save my cabin. This pile of river rock right here is actually the creek bed, but we had to berm it. May 2016 flood. The arrow points to where that previous stage went into the creek. This is where it pops out. This is the fascinating evolution of a creek. Mother Nature's annual transport of river rock changes its flow when water finds its path of least resistance. Because the creek cannot move westward due to the cliff, it has been moving eastward for the past 100 years. You could even say the creek has a life of its own. So you can see it's bermed here and the creek is up higher. And this is my road. When we have floods, it looks like a creek. May 2016 flood. Note the creek is at a higher elevation than the road. I burned the creek with permission by calling county emergency, the Corps of Engineers, and bridge director at that time, road and bridge director at the time, Don Hudson, and the press. There were about 8 people who were here to witness this. So you see when it floods over, it goes onto my road, and here's my cabin. The water went around from the left and around to the right. Flood encircled the cabin. Road and Bridge Corps engineers and county emergency were called. Brush Road is actually in the creek bed. Spring Creek overflows onto Tomorrow's Road. From these photos, it should be apparent that without my berming the creek to protect my home, my road would be in the creek. In other words, there would be no road whatsoever. Trenches were 5 feet deep and continued through Cherry Lane. If the creek weren't burned over the years, I would have been flooded out by now, as the creek would have migrated into my home. Returning to the previous slide, it is clear that without berming required to save the cabin, in reality, there would be no road whatsoever. Had I known this, I would have never built my home where it is located today. If we go by the pink area, which is most likely the original Brush Road, all of the original right-of-way, 100% lies within the creek. This is northern Idaho, and the area circled in red is grizzly and caribou recovery habitat. This is a collared grizzly captured on camera on West Spring Creek in October of last year. This is a collared grizzly captured on camera on my property in November. Because West Spring Creek heads straight into the creek due to the constant washouts and to protect the grizzly and caribou habitat as well, the U.S. Forest Service decided to minimize the traffic to the area by ending Spring Creek at the 120 trailhead. This is the 120 trailhead right here. Additionally, the DeMauro Road is 1 mile up from the former fish hatchery at Nurka Road, which is kokanee spawning grounds. You can watch the frolicking every fall when they turn bright red during mating season. The name Nurka comes from the scientific name of landlocked kokanee salmon, Oncorhynchus nurka. Furthermore, the Clark Fork water supply dam is 1 mile downstream from the DeMauro Road. Would we ever want to dig downstream from the Clark Fork water supply to put in any type of road? The precedent has already been set for vacating Brush Road. Through the recent settlement agreement of Shadow Valley Lane, it has already been vacated for the Walkers and Deans, in spite of the Deans never having applied for a building permit. This portion, all the way down to the Y, was vacated, and this bump out was created, and right about here is where, well, actually exactly right there, is where Shadow Valley Lane ends. Had the Deans applied for a required building permit, they would not have been allowed to build on a county road, nor been able to build 5 feet from my property line, or dump wastewater onto my property to this very day. They have 3 places where they're dumping, and here they are 5 feet from my property line. Brush Road has never been recorded. When I purchased the property, there was no mention of a county road in the title search. Had I known there might be a public road through this property, I would never have purchased it. Shadow Valley Lane has been in continuous use for over a century. However, my portion of Brush Road has not been used by the public since '78, when John Dibble purchased it. Although it is against what I believe in and not my desire by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever, I would be hard-pressed not to oppose a public road through my property. Nevertheless, you would leave me no choice. Today's appetite of unbridled entitlement has caused a great deal of anguish for many innocent folks in this neighborhood. In Bonner County, Liberty Heights has already become legendary in its attempts to usurp others' private property, beginning with Stony Brook Lane, Cherry Lane, and now with all the calls to the county, my private road, abandoned road. Attempted hostile takeovers based on hearsay have created great expense and extreme turmoil in our small portion of Bonner County. Judge Lansing ruled that Section 22 Liberty Heights had no right to use Section 23, Stony Brook and Cherry Lane, for its access. The River Journal is the most accurate article today. All facts are correct. Understandably, many more negative aspects, however, are not included. I hold other members of the press hugely responsible for a great deal of public confusion due to articles written without checking the facts. Just as we would all like to win the lottery, wouldn't it be nice to be able to use everyone else's property? However, I have been paying the property taxes since 2002, and I believe it is my constitutional right to quiet enjoyment of such. I believe that the opening of an abandoned county road, which was not recorded and therefore not in the title search when I purchased the property. 2, that requires extensive creek bed excavation. 3, that frequently washes out, thus requiring continual maintenance. 4, that may require 3 county bridges, or more accurately, a half-mile-long bypass over the creek, is a huge waste of taxpayers' funds and extremely unfair to me. In my opinion, the vacation of this portion of Brush Road is the final step in resolving the Brush Road Shadow Valley Lane fiasco. This adversity, lasting from 2015 until today, has been a very expensive lesson for all parties concerned, including the county. It has caused extreme anguish for the residents of this neighborhood. None of the problems would have been encountered had the roads been labeled public and private. Personally, I would not have even purchased the property. According to the 2018 US Census, Idaho and Nevada are the fastest growing states today. We can infer that this is just the beginning of these types of road problems. With COVID now in full swing, I believe there will be even more people moving to a safe place such as Idaho, so this is now urgent. Dear commissioners, with all due respect, I plead with you to help save this county. It is so much easier to be proactive and than to play Monday morning quarterback after it's too late. The county could go bankrupt fighting all the lawsuits that could arise from newcomers wanting what they want and destroying our way of life. Alan and Kaveri and I have some ideas we would like to run by you at a separate meeting. We have given this a great deal of thought. In reality, Alan has been attempting to get the county roads labeled for 30 years. I believe we must do this now. Thank you. Thinking of the future of Bonner County, I suggest that we label the roads public and private. What if we were to spend just a little to save the county millions in legal fees? That way we could prioritize our battles. We could do this by making all roads easily accessible in title searches, as I would never have bought this property had a county road been in the title search. In conclusion, with all due respect, and is not even a remote desire or intent, but I would be hard-pressed not to oppose the opening of a public road through my property. It was not in the title search and has not been used not in public use for more than 40 years. It would be against all my wishes, but you would leave me no choice. Thank you, commissioners, for your attention to this matter. I hope that you will be able to accommodate my request for vacation.
Okay. Thank you, Iris. At this point, just a statement or for and against?
It's neither for a statement of fact.
Okay, go ahead
Can you
and
turn the lights on?
go ahead and why don't you go ahead and come to the podium and make your statement. Then we'll get, I believe we have Mr. McLaughlin. He's got his hand raised, so he's going to want to go next.
Mr. Chairman, maybe opening it up to public testimony at this point.
Well, we still have to hear from, if there's opposition, we've got
That would
McLaughlin.
need a public testimony.
Okay, fine. We're good. So we'll open it up for public comment. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Richard Harder. I'm the Clark Park Fire Chief. I've been the fire chief for about 4 years and on the department for about 9. As a statement of fact, I don't have a fancy pointer thing. This access road, which has not been a road, as she has stated, for almost 40 years, has still been an access point that people have been able to use on and off or intermittently. I myself have driven it with Iris herself. She had opened her private gate to allow me access to drive. It's hard to tell where the lines are. According to Mr. Cabrera and her, the road's is in the creek. She has a road that's right next to it. I'm not sure what's what. I'm not a surveyor, so I can't speak to fact on that. What I can speak to fact is that on the 100 homes that live up in this valley, if there were to be a forest fire, landslide, mudslide, natural disaster of any kind, the only way that these people would be able to safely exit this valley, the people that live here, would be to access this road to go to West Spring Creek. If she were to cut off that access and put fencing up, it would basically turn the whole thing into a cul-de-sac, which would endanger everyone that is in that lives in that valley to any sort of natural disaster. Secondly, right about here, depending on which map you go by and what she says she's going to cut off, I have multiple people that have contracts. You can't see them on the map here, but they have contracted with the Clark Fork Fire Department in order to provide services for fire services and emergency services. From what I saw on our last map, if she cuts this off, she will stop my access from accessing my contracted people. So if she cuts off my access, I will not be allowed to go through there. I will not be allowed to go up and access the people that have hired us as the Clark Fork Fire Department. I see her shaking her head. Maybe she can give me a better map. I've asked for one. She's ignored my email. I don't know what to say to that, but I do know that there are some public safety issues here that have not been addressed. This has been addressed strictly from this is my property and I don't want people driving on it viewpoint, and I need to look at this from a public safety viewpoint. And I don't believe that enough information has been given to you to make a determination whether the public safety can be adequately addressed with her cutting off access through that area.
Well, and I believe, if I may, that all she's talking about is this old easement that runs up through here.
Correct.
Not talking about cutting any of this off.
Well, and
this actually meets the standard for road or for planning department for access and egress, because they approved the Liberty Heights subdivision.
Well, I understand that, but the map that she had provided me, actually, she didn't provide me with anything. I'd gotten a map from someone else, included the bridge that's right there. And it included half the bridge. It didn't include the whole bridge. It only included half the bridge. But if she were to cut off access to half the bridge, I still can't drive across it with an emergency vehicle. And that was in the original application that was sent to Chad Moorhead. It had the little map, square on the bottom of the box.
I'm looking to see if there's an actual.
Yeah. I mean, if someone wants to show me a more accurate map where it says that bridge will not be included, then I would definitely say that me accessing those people up on the hill would not be a problem. But from what it looks like on the map that I was provided or I'd seen, it does cut off part of the bridge.
So do you want to move on to the rest of the public?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on.
Let the applicant reply.
Yeah.
Or, Director, a couple
Sure,
questions.
please.
One question I have is, are you aware that Bonner County has a policy when approving subdivisions of requiring 2 points of access for emergency services?
No, I was not aware of that. I'm not a part of the planning commission.
Okay, are you aware that many fire districts actually give comments when there's subdivisions developing in Bonner County related to emergency access?
I'm sure they do, yes. They should.
To the best of my knowledge, and I'm not testifying here, the standard that the fire districts throughout Bonner County for emergency access that they have supported is 2 points of access. And I'm not familiar with any fire districts ever asking anywhere in Bonner County to mandate that a developer put 3 points of access. Are you familiar?
For 3 points of access, no, but there's not even 2 points of access here now.
There are two, well,
There are actually
Liberty
2 points.
Heights, when it was approved, I'm making an example, Liberty
Yes.
Heights, in that area, when it was approved, it had to go through our land use regulations
Correct.
requiring 2 points of access.
Correct.
The local access road, is that the local access road level?
This would be the first local access road. The other access road, which you can't see, which is down here, Iris has bought the property on the top of the mountain and gated that, so that access point has already been cut off, thus limiting already to one access point.
I find that hard to believe because the planning department could not have approved the Liberty Heights subdivision.
Liberty Heights was approved prior to her putting the gate in on top of the hill.
But she couldn't have put the gate in had they not had access rights for 2 points of access.
There is a gate there. And that's all I can say is that there is a gate there.
You can't litigate
Yeah, we're not here to even talk about that.
He's asking me the questions, I'm responding.
Right, but if there is a gate there, then it will have to be removed, but,
Correct, but my
Yeah.
point is this, is that Bonner County has taken a position countywide that 2 points of access is in the public interest for emergency services. Requiring 3 points, 4 points, 5 points.
There's still only 1 point of access. This map doesn't show it, but even if you ignore the fact that there's a secondary gate here from the fish hatchery to the Highway 200, there's only 1 point of access. This would only be the other second point of access.
okay. I think we've got the point. Yeah, the planning department's approved it. So based on standards, thanks. Okay, now we have a hand raised by Mr. McLaughlin. Toby, you are unmuted and ready to roll.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. I appreciate it. I have a couple. First of all, I'm representing the Walker family who owns 60 acres that's accessed by this roadway, as well as Shadow Valley Camp LLC, which owns property adjacent to this roadway. In fact, just to the north of what the Dean's used to own, that is property owned by Shadow Valley Camp LLC. And I'll just point out, first of all, that Shadow Valley Camp was never provided notice of this hearing, and it is on that adjacent right-of-way, so that is a defect in in terms of that. But more substantively, there are several issues with respect to this petition that I think the commissioner should consider. First of all, if you look at the way Mr. Smith drafted the petition, I'm looking at his amended petition here. It says the portion of Brush Road which the petitioners seek to abandon and vacate is that north of East Spring Creek Road at the Stony Brook Junction. And then it says, including all current and past locations on Iris's property and the Neatman property. But it doesn't say only those right-of-way on the DeMauro property or the Neatman property. And if you go to the actual junction between Brush Road, between East Creek Road and Stony Brook, that would be the south end of Shadow Valley Lane. Now, this is important for one particular reason. The way that the Bonner County Dean Walker case resolved was not the vacating of the public road, it was the relocation of the Brush Creek right-of-way. We were able to relocate with the commissioners, we were able to reach a settlement, but if you look at the judgment indicates, this was Susan Weeks's idea, who was counsel for the county, that right-of-way be relocated around the Dean home and up. So if, in fact, this road vacation starts at the junction of Stony Brook and, Stony Brook and East Spring Creek Road, that would vacate that recently relocated right-of-way, which would then result in the blockage of the entire Liberty Heights subdivisions up there and no way to get across that. So that's a problem. Now, if it were just limited strictly to Iris's property, Ms. DeMaro's property and the Neatman property, then that would probably resolve that issue. But the way this is worded isn't that way. So that's a big issue. It would essentially potentially landlock hundreds of property owners up in that way, not just the Liberty Heights, but my clients as well. Your Honor, I'm just getting used to that.
Yeah. Listen, don't refer to me as a judge.
Yeah. The second part of it is, even if we're talking about just the roadway north of the Sleepy Creek subdivision, meaning the old Dean property. The Deans don't own that property anymore. It's owned by the Moorheads. But you're talking about the portion of the roadway from Cherry Creek north onto Sled Run and over that. I did send Jesse Webster a portion of a survey. It's not a formal survey, it's survey work done by Dan Probald. It has a stamp on it. I think that's useful to look at because it shows the edge of the boundary line between the DeMauro property and the Shadow Valley Camp property, which is called Walker on here, but because Shadow Valley Camp is owned by the Walker family. But it shows the boundary. If you see that, it says property line on the right-hand side under DeMauro. Mm-hmm. And then just under that, it says edge of gravel/road. So you can see that the physical roadway, and if you go south of that where it says that, approximately in one portion, almost half of that roadway, the physical roadway, is located on the DeMauro property, even to the north of the deal. So what she could then do, if the commissioners granted this petition, is block half of the road right there. And I would suggest that is a dangerous condition because even, yes. Can you guys hear me?
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
It's over there. Oh, did we put in the wrong thing?
Are we back?
Gonna be trying.
I can hear you fine. I see my name on the screen.
Hey, Toby, I've got a quick question for you. Looking at the drawing you provided,
Sure.
does this include the realignment? Because I see where this jogs over to the east,
Right.
the actual gravel roadway, but isn't that the portion that's been realigned?
Yeah, you're absolutely, well, no, I don't think this portion is. I think this is north of what was realigned. But you're absolutely right, Commissioner. This map predates the realignment. But there is a portion of that road that's north of what was realigned before you reach the bridge. And I think that's what this shows. That was never realigned. Anything north of that portion wasn't realigned. And so I'm concerned. I mean, we don't have any survey work from Ms. DeMauro that indicates as to where the boundary line is relative to the actual physical roadway. And so I would suggest that either, I mean, with respect to this issue, either that it be tabled until she provides that information so that we can make a decision, or you can make a decision with all the facts, or that perhaps a condition be put on the vacation that the physical roadway itself, that she dedicates that to the public, so that there's no question that she's not going to have the ability to fence off a portion of what has been used as a public right-of-way. I would note that she has already installed fences even before this hearing. She's put blocks up on the bridge itself, within the bridge, that interferes with people's ability to drive across it. And so I would be very leery of, that kind of self-help is concerning, frankly. I would suggest that it's in the county's best interest and the public's interest to make sure the Liberty Heights people, the walkers, and anybody else who has property up there continues to be able to access their property on a 2-lane road. The third issue is just reflecting what the chief said there, Chief Harder. There is only, if you zoom out enough on the GIS to see where the other point of access is that Scott was mentioning, it still East Spring Creek Road. I mean, if you follow that loop all the way around, even if Ms. DeMauro was forced to remove her gate, it still results in East Spring Creek. So if the fire was at East Spring Creek right there at the base, there's no other way out other than this public right of way.
Of course, logically, if the fire was there would still be no other way out. So,
well, you could go across West Spring Creek if you were to cross that.
Yeah.
I mean, the county would have to put a bridge in there realistically at some point. I don't know if the county will ever do that. I'm just suggesting it's something to keep in mind. I would also suggest that, Ms. DeMauro, I think, boldly threatened the county about 6 times during her presentation, including in bright red letters. There is no legal basis by which she could oppose the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way is already there. The fact that it hasn't been used, there is no passive abandonment of an easement, a public easement after 1963, unless you were to be able to prove that there was no use on the road before 1973 for a sufficient amount of time. That was one of the rulings in the county lawsuit that we had. So there's no threat, or no legitimate threat of a lawsuit here. She could bring one, I suppose, but I would just suggest that the county not just submit to bold threats of litigation. So that's what I have to say. I would suggest that it's not in the public's interest. I would also, one other thing, as you guys know, number one, you can't landlock anybody. And if the Shadow Valley Lane is abandoned or vacated, that will landlock people. Number two, it is Ms. DeMauro's burden to prove that the vacation is in the public interest. That's right in the statute. I didn't hear one bit of evidence in the presentation as to a public interest. All I heard was Ms. DeMauro saying, I don't want this on my property, it hasn't been used. What evidence is there at all that's been presented that this is in the public interest? The only evidence is that it is not in the public interest in terms of a public safety hazard. So I respectfully will end my questions here unless you have any questions.
Yeah, hang tight for a second. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. McLaughlin? Nope. Okay, thanks, Toby.
Thank you.
Go ahead and unmute you.
Did we already answer this question that's on the screen?
I didn't, what's the question? Let's see. Never mind, it's YouTube.
Oh, it's Toby, he's gonna talk. Hang on, Toby.
Okay, hang on for a second. Go ahead, Toby. Hello, it's me. He's muted still.
He's muted.
Okay, sorry about that. That was an old raising of the hand. I'm good.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Let's see. How does vacation of Brush Road impact residents beyond the road? As I understand, a portion of the road being proposed is to vacate is actively being used to access Sled Run Trail. Is there any other questions other than that? Never mind, you two, I believe.
Yeah, there's a second one.
Yeah, I was just.
Let's see. It is more, yeah. Yeah, I don't see anything that's of any relevance. Okay. Somebody's got their hand up again? Is that an old one or is it a?
We probably should have read that one into the record as you were kind of stumbling along there or reading it like.
Well, it was actually captured in Toby's comments about, and the fire chief's comments about access.
Oh, well, I don't know what Sled Run Trail is, so I think.
Yeah, that's where it loops back.
So I think I'll read it in so that it's in the record. How does the vacation of Brush Road impact residents beyond the road? As I understand, a portion of the road being proposed to vacate is actively being used to access Sled Run Trail. This was by Stephen Rhodes, and I'm reading it into the record. And I think he can raise his hand if he wants to comment anymore.
Yeah. Stephen, is there anything else you want to add to that? You can raise your hand if you know how to do that. We got hands going up everywhere now.
Here's Stephen.
Okay, let's go ahead and hit Stephen first, and then we'll go through. Stephen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
I believe my question is fairly straightforward. Toby was addressing the same issue, and I guess I just haven't heard an answer to what happens with that, because currently I rent property on that along Sled Run Trail, and should access be blocked by the vacation of Brush Road, I no longer have access to where I'm currently living.
And chances are we won't have an answer for that today, only because I think what we're going to have to end up doing here, there seems to be a few things hanging out there that we're going to probably just finish with testimony and then pick another date to deliberate, because there's some information that we still need to obtain, and one of those has to do with that access.
But they may be able to answer that in their rebuttal, so.
Yeah,
after all public speaks.
Okay, let's go to Chad Moorhead. Chad, can you hear us? Hello, Chad.
Hi, this is Nicole. Hi, this is Nicole Moorhead.
Okay,
Chad Moorhead. Good morning. I'm only commenting due to the fact that Mrs. DeMero mentioned during her testimony that there was still currently sewage pipes going down. And we just want to make sure we know what that is, because we're unaware of that.
Are you talking about a sewage pipe going down along the old easement or along along Brush Creek Road where it makes the turn and goes over the bridge?
Between our road and her road.
And what road is yours?
We are on Shadow Valley Lane, where the Dean's old home was.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, and I don't know that we're actually looking at that. I think we're just looking at the property, the easements that are where the.
And that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Right, just because she brought it up during the meeting, we just wanted to remedy that. So that was our reason.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Thomas Walker.
I had to make sure we were covered.
Hello, Mr. Walker, can you hear us? Hello?
We had her, or maybe.
Hello? A lot of talk. Click it again.
Walker doesn't have any audio, doesn't he?
Can you hear us?
Next for whatever's going down, so I needed to bring that.
Oh, we're back to Moorhead.
We're back to Moorhead. Sorry, we're back to Moorhead. Let's try Walker one more time. Is he's up? Okay, Mr. Walker, can you hear us? It says Thomas Walker is talking, but we're not hearing anything.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now we hear you. Try to speak up if you can.
Testing.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Apparently
He's
not.
probably a speaker, probably. He can type in the Q&A if you like.
Can you, Mr. Walker, can you go ahead and just type in your question or statement and we'll read it aloud for the record?
Maybe you could type him a message, Bonnie, and ask him to type his question.
What do you get when you click?
Anybody else out there?
He goes, I can't get Mike unmuted.
Okay, so,
So just go ahead and type your question in and we'll read it aloud, or type your comment in and we'll read it aloud for the record.
your speaker.
Is there anybody else with their hand up?
It's fairly extensive.
Yeah, there is. You might
Can you
somebody else.
encapsulate it into some? We're going to go to another caller. Sounds kind of odd, but see if you can figure out a way to encapsulate it into a written statement.
Commissioner
Scott, go ahead.
If at the end of his testimony, he could call in
Testing.
separate phone.
Okay, I can hear you right now, Mr. Walker. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, here we go. Bingo. Now let's try this.
All right. Again, my name is Tom Walker. I'm the manager for Shadow Valley Camp. And yes, I do want to confirm that the county did not contact us in the process of this, but also I want to say that I can give you some extensive background information long before even Mr. Dibble purchased the property from my father. The problems that Ms. DeMauro speaks about in terms of the creek running in the road have been there for many years. That's true. However, my father constructed a road that also goes across their property that allowed access to neighborhood people in order to get out as a secondary access. It was never made public, but everyone knew about it and used it. That road still exists today. I think it's probably part of the road that Iris is claiming she created. And I think it's of paramount concern that we get that access. People that have lived there for years have known how important that secondary access is. It's never been formalized because the county always owned that road and always had access over that, so nobody questioned whether there was access out through that property. So I just want to say that my family is more than willing to try to help find a way to get access. We want to cooperate in that process. And it was really amazing to listen to many of the arguments that were made today. Would have alleviated the problem that we faced with a lot of money in the legal action that took place before initiated by Iris against us through other people. But we've worked hard to make sure that that access is available today. That's why it's as far as it is. And we just want to make sure that access is available in the future, not only up into the Liberty Heights area, but a secondary access out over to West Spring Creek.
Okay.
My question to Tom would be, right now there isn't one, is that correct? I mean, it's not drivable, and the road that we're talking about is not even usable at this point. So are you, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you that it'd be nice to have a secondary access, and I think it's important, but can you answer the question of whether there is one there now that goes to West Spring Creek?
Well, actually, I can answer that. There is one.
No, let him answer.
Well, no, I'm familiar with it. It's because I was involved in the original litigation. So there is another access that is gated right now that goes up to West Spring Creek.
That is correct. And my father built that, so I know exactly where it goes and that it is accessible. In fact, in 2006...
That's the one you were referring to in your original statement.
Right.
Yeah. But take that away, take that away right now. There is no other road the road that we're talking about vacating has no passable access right now.
Yeah, but I just want to point out that by your own arguments that these roads tend to move around in various places in North Idaho, my father was party to moving the road around in a way to allow the access that original right-of-way was intended to provide. And just as an example, in 2006, the only point of access out for the valley was washed out by Lightning Creek. And at that time, I believe Iris was approached about opening that access for people. And I don't know this personally, but I've heard that she refused it at that point.
No, it sounds like hearsay and kind of a rumor, so I wouldn't be talking that way, but that's fine. Okay, anything else, any other questions for Mr. Walker? Hearing none, let's go ahead and go to, are you done, Thomas? Or do you have anything else you want to share?
No, that's fine.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's go to Elizabeth and John Randolph Beck. Okay, can you hear us? Is
Yes.
Elizabeth or John? Okay.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're coming in loud and clear.
Thank you. We are property owners up on Liberty Heights. We have lot 6. Through the years, we have watched what's been going on with the roads. I am deeply concerned because even if we have the assurances of Miss Iris, I have seen her being vindictive with the road and putting up blockades. So I am very nervous about her now trying to close off any other access we have down that side of the mountain. And that's all I needed to say.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, is there any other public comment? Anybody on the Zoom that wants to, oh, we have another. Vacation Brush Road impact residents beyond the road. As I understand the portion of the road, we already read that one. The one below it, Miss DeMauro stated that the road hasn't been used for some time. Is that partially due to the concrete blocks that she has placed in the roadway? No, because those are recent, right?
Very recent.
Yeah, so those were recent. So I think she's talking about from 1978. In her testimony, it was 1978 forward. I think he even went back to 64. But anyway, okay. Any other comments before we close comment portion? No. Okay, Scott.
Commissioners, I would request to recall Steve Klatt, Road Bridge Director, for just a couple follow-up questions from the testimony here.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and take Merriam Roads first? Is there 2 up there? Merriam, can you hear me?
I believe so. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I currently live up past on Sled Run Trail, and I can say that there has been use on the road that is in question, the gravel road, I believe that's what it was called. There was some use on it prior to Mr. Morrow purchasing that property after 60 whatever, because I used to ride that road with horses. We used to go up there with pickup trucks. It wasn't the best maintained road, but it was a road that was passable.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it. I just wanted to let the commissioners know that it was used and it was passable at that time. And
okay. Good deal. Alrighty, thank you. Do we have one more up here? It says, no. I didn't see Toby want to jump in again. Okay, so let's go to, where did Scott go?
Outside with his fellow.
Scott?
Well, I think Steve's got something, right? Or
yeah, but yeah, I think Scott had a question for him. So as soon as we find our attorney, we'll get our road and bridge director back up here. Anybody have a good joke or anything that we can say over there? Oh, I really hate dead air.
Sing a song.
Yeah, I don't know. Can't think of anything that would be appropriate for the occasion.
I have a question for Mr. Morrow while we're waiting.
Go ahead.
If we were to vacate that road, is anybody using that road right now to access their property? Would it landlock anybody?
Absolutely not. They're talking about a totally separate area. No, it would not. I would never do that in 10 zillion years.
Yeah, I think so there's the road that has a curve in it. I wish we had the map up. The road comes up in curves. This is what they're talking about, because where the existing gravel road lies versus the property line are two different locations. But what we're talking about primarily is the property within her boundary. Which one
property line.
Yeah. It's that access that goes all the way up to West Spring Creek. But there is some concerns about that curve that's been expressed.
Because the curve is actually the described right of way is different than the actual road. Is that correct? Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if this, take a look at that.
That map doesn't even show the west line of Brush Road right away.
Okay,
is east
would
line.
you please come to the podium so Scott can ask you some questions?
Oh, east of this.
So that would be where on here.
Don't forget to state your name again.
I'll be glad. That doesn't really show it, but it's right there.
Curve there.
Yeah.
Steve Platt, Road and Bridge Director for the record.
Starts right.
Mr. Clyde, I was just going to ask you, with the portion of Brush Road
This is
on
the
our
west line of Brush Road right there.
that required to open that up
Anything to do with
for
this.
emergency access, that required bridges to be constructed.
It would. At least probably 2 bridges to be constructed.
And can you give a guesstimate of what it could cost to open that up?
In just thinking in general terms, I would expect it to be a $500,000 project.
And given our 5-year, 10-year transportation improvement plans, and your past experience with the county, given all the road needs and construction needs throughout the county, how likely is that a board would fund that kind of project over the next 10, 15 years?
It seems unlikely.
No further questions.
Go ahead.
So I've been made aware that it is required by the county to have 2 access points to any given subdivision. And if we look at the map, could you please determine how anyone can have a second? Where is the second access point for the people that live up Spring Creek?
It's connecting East Spring Creek to West Spring Creek.
But you need a bridge to make that connection and make it passable.
Or we need an emergency access route.
Right. And if the county were to vacate that property, and if the county were to give up all right of ways, would there then be a second access point out of that valley?
There still would be the potential to create an emergency access route over to Iris Tomorrow's property.
So we would then need her permission, or they would then have to go ahead and access rights that they've already given up in order to get that emergency access route.
I would assume that is part of the commissioner's negotiation. I don't believe that is under my cap.
Understood. So just to be clear, if the county were to vacate that road, there would only be one access point in and out of that valley, unless they were then to then assert their rights to try and get an emergency access back over the rights that they just vacated.
I think it's a true statement that there is one access route out of that valley to connect to Highway 200 to get out, and that's East Spring Creek.
And that's not changed. This would not change that because you're not accessing it now through that.
But we are. Iris has already given me the gate code to the gate and let me know as the Clarksville Fire Chief.
So that has nothing to.
Right. You're talking about a completely separate road from the easement we're discussing.
So we have to focus.
You're talking about the road that's to the west of where this easement is.
The commissioners already agreed that these roads move due to changing conditions on rivers.
So they're 2 completely separate issues. Yes. That one is not a legal access. The other one that runs through the creek is the legal access.
I see. So we
So we're
do,
talking about-
there's only one access point, even though the county regulates that there's supposed to be two.
There are two, according to
But you
planning.
just told me it didn't exist.
According to planning, there are two.
And for the record, the county distinguishes between points of access from local access roads onto collectors
Right.
and from collectors onto arterials. East Spring Creek Road is the one point of access to the arterial of Highway 200. Yes, there's one point of access to the arterial. The Bonner County land use regulations require 2 points of access from a local access road to a collector. That is satisfied in that area because you've got Sled Run Trail, and then you've got what's called Shadow Valley Lane as 2 points, 2 connector points to the collector road known as East Spring Creek Road. So
That's not true. Pull up the map. That's a complete and absolute
we're
lie.
not going to litigate that here.
Yeah, that's not part of this, but I've actually driven it.
So have I lived there.
So yeah, so I've driven it, so I've seen it, but we're not here to debate that. We're looking at this easement that doesn't
So you're
exist.
just going to accept a lie and take it at its face value without actually looking into the facts.
I think making the statement it's a lie is completely out of line.
So what we will.
You're saying, wait a minute, so you're saying I'm lying?
I'm saying that he's lying. Pull up the map. It's very clear.
So what we're gonna
Put the
do.
map on the board.
Listen,
and there it is.
slow down, or else I'll have you removed. Here's the deal. We're gonna take this into consideration. We're gonna look at conditions, and we may make condition changes in order to approve it. So we've listened
This
to the
is a
testimony.
discussion leading to a decision. This isn't, I mean, we are listening to all of this and taking it in, and then we will say, we want to know more about this, and this. And
Yeah,
in
there's
this situation, it's pretty obvious that there's going to be a lot more information needed for us to make a decision.
Yeah, there's a lot of things at play here. So it's not the drop dead deal today, that's for sure. Any other questions for Mr. Klatt since he's been standing there patiently?
I've got 3 up here.
Okay, go ahead and let's fire up and go from the top to the bottom. Toby. Go ahead, Toby.
All right, we haven't had the rebuttal yet, so maybe it'll be cleared up, but I did want to point out, and Steve, maybe you can clarify it if you don't mind. I'm looking at the map that's attached to the amended petition as addendum 2, which shows the in red, the portion of the right-of-way, that is supposed to be vacated. It does go all the way down Shadow Valley Lane. And so I'm very concerned that the petition, and again, like I mentioned, the road vacation that happened before was just a relocation. So where Shadow Valley Lane is now is still Brush Road.
And we can pick that up in conditions. We
Okay.
can take a look at that.
All right, thank you.
Be able to rebut it. I think they've got she said Cherry Lane, he said, I mean, there's several different descriptions.
Right.
So maybe we can clear it up when they rebut.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Go ahead. Thanks, Toby. Let's go to Marion Rhodes. What are we doing here? Hang on a second. Okay, Marion, can you hear us now?
She doesn't.
Unmute. There we go. Oh, we had her. Nope. Unmute her. Is she? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I also just wanted I'm sorry, this is not necessarily a question, but I wanted to make a comment to what the fire chief was saying, is that the gravel road is actually the relocation of Brush Road, just not on any maps, because the bridge was washed out in '64. The road was moved to where it is now, across the bridge, right past the Dean's old property.
I think the problem is we're talking about, I think we're all talking about several different roads here.
Except for we're not, because you guys mentioned, you mentioned that this is about all of the roads that may have sprung up off of Brush Road, and this particular road is one of those roads.
No, we're talking about the roads that fall within the applicant's property.
Right, and that road goes across the applicant's property, and it was created as a result of Brush Road being washed out.
Are you talking about the portion just above where the old Dean's place is? Can you
Yes,
see the map?
I can see the map. I live up here.
Okay.
So if you see the road right past the first curve on the road that goes up, that is Brush Road. That is the road we're talking about.
Right.
Right. If you go a little to the left, there's a little bit of a peak where another road goes off. That is the road that was created as a result of Brush Road being washed out.
So you're talking north of the flat spot where the two curves are, between the two curves? Is that what
So
we're talking about?
we're talking about right.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. It's right there.
That
You see
line,
where-
that line that goes north, kind of northwest.
Yes, there's a line that line. That's the old Brush Road.
Right.
Right. Go a little to the left.
But that's not the old Brush Road according to the legal description. The legal description of the old Brush Road has it east of there.
But my point is that if you go a little to the left, there's another turnout right there.
Right.
That is a road that was created in direct result of Brush Road being washed out. And I just wanted to point that out because it's not a separate issue. It is the issue of this road was created because Brush Road washed out. Therefore, if Brush Road is, and all of its everything connected to it in any way across Mr. Morrow's property is taken away, then this particular road will be also negated.
Scott?
Just for the record, if another road was constructed privately, that would be a private potential prescriptive easement right.
Yeah, regardless of the reason.
Regardless of what the county does here. The counties, if it was created by the county and it was maintained by the county and a prescriptive easement over that county.
It was created privately because the county refused to maintain the county road, and the property owners at the time realized there needed to be another egress out of the valley.
And that would not be affected, if that's true, that would not be affected by this proposed vacation, because this is only vacating county-created, county-owned rights-of-way and easement, not private.
You get that?
I do, and I do, but I don't think that my question is being understood, but okay.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying. There was another road created, but we can only deal with the road that was the easement that was legally created.
But what she's saying is similar to what I was saying, that when you do this, you will be eliminating that. She thinks that move to there when they redid it is what I'm assuming.
And I get it. There's no legal description for an easement there.
But the key is no matter which way you take it, what she's saying is this is a privately, not a publicly constructed easement. This vacation has no effect.
Right, the county, it's not a county easement, it's not a public
I don't
easement.
disagree. What I'd like to see moving forward is better maps. I mean, I can see it here, but I'd like to be able to see that on a map. And this map, more of a descriptive map of exactly what we're talking about. And if it gets to the point where we actually have to have the, go up there and look at it, because truly everybody is talking about at least several different things, I think.
Yep.
I think that this is getting more confusing by the minute. We're talking about at least 2 or 3 different separate issues. And I don't think we're getting anywhere. I just think we're floundering. I want them to be able to rebut, but we're just not getting anywhere.
Okay, so let's go to the next person. Miriam, you're done, right? Okay, great. Let's go back. Okay, thank you. We'll go to Toby. Toby, you're back on again.
Hold on. Sorry, guys. That must have been an old one. I did not click on it again, or I didn't mean to.
Okay.
All right,
Alrighty,
thanks.
so let's go to Elizabeth. Down at the bottom, there we go. Elizabeth John Randolph. There you go. Elizabeth, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, good. I kept trying to click the right button. The last name, is Beck. If you could read that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's none of it. Yeah.
You had remedied my question I had a moment ago by putting up the map, and I am getting more and more confused because, little sections are talked about and I'm not clear. Is it possible to have the map remain during this discussion so at least I have a visual?
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Amazingly enough, we have that technology.
Yes, I saw it earlier, but it keeps disappearing. Thank you.
It's coming up. Hold on for just one moment. Okay, there we go. Does that help?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, is there any, so do you have any other questions or statements?
No,
Regarding the map?
thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, rebuttal time, fortunately, finally.
Will you officially close public comment?
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
It is 11:34, and we're going to go ahead and close public comment for now, and we'll give the applicant a chance to respond to some of the questions.
Hey,
Scott,
you just took the map down.
Just a moment here.
Hold on.
hold on for a second. You can go ahead and mute Elizabeth again, but just let's make sure we get the map up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was still on.
Yeah, you're on. Everybody heard that. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Scott.
I was just going to comment that this was the spoken public comment that's closed, but was it identified for the record that there were written public comments submitted?
So there were about, Mr. McLaughlin submitted the one comment from that and an email regarding the Walker's property. So that's been submitted into the record. And then we had sent out notifications, and those apparently got copied because we received, I think at last count was about 21 letters of support for Mr. Morrow's road vacation. And those are all submitted into the record as well.
Okay. All righty. Yes, Scott.
Sorry, and I do have a proposal. With the close of testimony, to the extent there's still uncertainty about, Mr. McLaughlin made some claims that had to do with potentially cutting off access that need to be looked into. What I would suggest is that the applicants provide additional information to staff, and then staff can, during your deliberation phase, your continued deliberation phase, can write up proposed findings and conclusions depending on which way you want to go.
I think that sounds lovely.
Incorporate that.
The next question is, though, the next time we come together to deliberate, we're going to do it publicly, and we're going to allow, and people are going to be able to tune in. Nope. They can't hear it. Well, then why don't we have?
Unless you keep testimony open.
Well, but then, okay, so my question is, wouldn't it be beneficial to maybe allow them to answer some of the questions and allegations that have been made so that everybody can hear, so we can make sure we try to preen down some of the extra
my bad
stuff. Okay, thank you. Then let's do that. So, response time to questions, comments, and allegations you've heard so far.
I guess I got just a comment, because we could actually, if you left public comment open, if there's specific things that we want, then we could, I mean, that may answer a lot of these questions. What we keep hearing is these repeating questions about whether or not she's blocking people off or anything like that, which I think the answer is no, obviously. But I mean, to tell you the truth, this map that we have, that's what we have to look at. So this is not adequate. We need something like.
I don't think we got it as part of the record. You got it, Steve? Okay. Well, anyway, so what I would like to do is let's go ahead and we can still ask them questions. But I just wanted, if there's something you feel fruitful that needs to be added to the questions or comments that have been made, I would love to hear it.
I'm sure they have some responses.
Well, I really think it's going to have to wait until the commissioners can look at these maps that Alan Kamara has brought. I think they'll clarify a lot of this, but I just don't know mechanically how we can do this and be able to get information so that it goes out to the people who are watching.
Yeah, and
I think that's going to be important.
Yeah, I think that's very important, because there's some people that have invested some time and energy in hanging in here. So, Scott, you have a suggestion?
To the extent that you continue this hearing and keep testimony open, if you keep it completely open, then you can be submitting new comments. You can have new parties come in to give evidence.
Can we limit to only participating parties?
I would suggest that.
Okay. We have the ability to do that since you're our attorney? Okay.
And I would like, before the final decision made, is let Mr. Weinkoop weigh in, because he is the attorney on this matter.
Okay. Okay, is this thing working? Because it appears to be dark to me.
It's working. You had one late hand raise. Are public comments closed or not?
We haven't closed it yet.
Well, kind of.
Well, yes and no. We haven't. No, we're going to probably end up having to probably leave it open just to limit it to people that have participated. Can we find Weinkoop on the list of? He's the 208-887 one on the very top, he's got his hand raised.
Oh, Weincoop?
Yeah, right up there you go. Mr. Weincoop.
Okay, Commissioners, this is Dave Weincoop, if I might make a few comments.
Sure.
Going forward, first, the rebuttal needed to be part of the public hearing, and I wasn't sure if I understood the comments, but I just want to clarify that the rebuttal testimony was part of the public hearing, and I guess get the chairman to agree to that, and I'm hearing a yes. And that's just for the record. I think you have a couple of options going forward. Mr. Bauer indicated one possibility, but I want to just kind of go through some of the range of options that you have. One is to close the hearing to further testimony. And then that has several variants. You could leave the record open for a fixed period, such as 10 days for further written comments. But the record itself would be closed to further public hearing. So that's option number one, with the alternate for option number one being to leave the record open for a specific number of days for written comments. Option number two at this point would be to continue the public hearing to a date certain, and to then, but if you do that, then you would be allowing further testimony. And I think Mr. Bauer's recommendation, if I understood it, was that the further testimony be limited to people that have provided testimony in this proceeding. Option number three would be to, if the commission is ready, but I don't sense that you're ready, would be to go ahead and make a decision one way or the other and direct staff to prepare findings of fact and conclusions of law. But if you need more information and you think it is fair for the applicant and the petitioner and others to submit further information, then you probably do not want to pursue the option of making a decision at that point.
Right, and I think with all the different little moving targets here, it's wise not to proceed that way, at least in my opinion.
I would agree. I'm not prepared to make a decision either way. I want more information so I can make an educated decision.
Yeah, I've got the general gist, but there's some things that we need to tie up to be sure. So, yes.
Option one.
Yeah, but we do need to make sure the rebuttal is part of this testimony. So we're going to go ahead and go for the rebuttal, and then
hold on, because I just as soon see it left open to public. I think we should just
that's what we're going to do.
Push this.
But we need to have the rebuttal. I'm not closing public comment.
It's still open if we push this, if it's still open, so he doesn't have to read that at this point.
I think just the fact that we have the people here already, we already have the audience here.
Yeah.
Why not just go for it? It'll be one last comment. You don't.
There are maps that are going to answer a lot of these questions.
Okay, so if you think we need to have, okay.
See how we get it.
Then my recommendation is going to be that we not close public comment.
Correct.
I think this needs to stay open regardless. I mean, we could try to limit it, but I think, listen, I want to make sure we get everything right here. Scott, you have an objection to that?
No, I agree, and I think there are two options for keeping public comment open, and I would suggest option number one, Mr. One.
Right, I just
limit it to the people that have already participated.
Okay.
Does that mean the people that are listed there, or does that mean the
I would say anybody that's
spoke?
listed, anybody that's given written, anybody that's participated in one form or another. Is there a way for us to capture this list?
We have registration.
Okay, perfect.
No problem.
Okay, so I think at this point, why don't we go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and recess this hearing. Yes, Scott. I would love to have you make a proposal for it.
I propose that the board move to continue this hearing to a date certain, to keep testimony open exclusively to people who have been identified as testifying today.
Okay, so Jesse, do we have a date certain?
We don't have a date certain, but I.
Can you make certain we have a certain date?
Give me a couple minutes.
Okay.
How far out are you thinking, Mr. Bauer?
2 weeks?
Probably at least that. But you guys want to weigh in on what it's going to take you to be prepared?
Tomorrow.
I've got them all right here.
I was gonna say, I'd be willing to bet that they probably got the information that we're gonna request available, but, yeah, why don't we, so we
Does
get
this
this.
require any new publication? Is my next question.
And secondly,
Because I was under the impression.
ask
Okay,
Mr. White, let's ask Mr. Wykoop.
Okay.
He's still alive.
Dave, you still on?
No.
Can you unmute Mr. Wankoop, please?
Oh.
Dave, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now. I can hear you, and I'm now unmuted.
Okay. So Scott, what do you want to ask?
Mr. Wykoop, if we continue this hearing to a date certain and we announce it within the scope of this meeting, is any additional publication of notice required?
Commissioners, in my view, this would be analogous to either a court proceeding or a planning and zoning proceeding, such that if you did the notices for this hearing, which my understanding is you did with perhaps one exception, that then everybody had notice of this hearing. So anybody that took the time and effort to attend this hearing is here and aware of the date that you are continuing the hearing to. Therefore, there would not be an obligation to do new public notices regarding the date of the continued hearing.
Okay, so the answer is no.
Mr. Bauer, is that your question?
You've answered my question.
Yes, thank you.
Just to make.
Dave, are we paying you by the word, or how is this working out? Just kidding.
Just to make one comment for those that are on, so a date, I'll set to continue at a date certain, it will be noticed. So most likely with instructions, if we choose to go the virtual route by that time, the Friday prior to the hearing on the Bonner County ID.gov website.
Yeah, I think for now, we need to plan on going that virtual, and in the event that.
So all of that
it's gonna happen.
information will be emailed the way that it was, and it will be noticed online. But the date, the first date that I'm coming up with that is May 21st at 10 a.m.
May 21st at 10 a.m.? Okay. So who wants to provide me with a motion?
I will.
Put it for a vote.
I will. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue this hearing until May 21st at 10 a.m. and allow public comment only by the people that participated in this hearing. Anything else we need involved?
I think we're good there. Okay, so we have a motion?
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion throughout with the board? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. So with that, this meeting is continued.
Oh, that was painful.
Thanks, everybody, for showing up.
So